As Canadians, we struggle with saving money. A recent poll by MNP showed that 47% of Canadians are planning to take on more debt in order to cover basic living expenses. By taking on more debt in a desperate situation, you can get caught in a debt trap that begins a vicious, lifelong cycle of struggling to make interest payments and not being able to save. In this video, I'm going to take a look at what Canadians are spending on, and I can show you how you can focus on 3 big problem spending areas in order to best grow your savings. Hey, what's going on? It's Chris here from Wealth Awesome. What are Canadians spending their money on? This isn't going to be your typical savings list where I just tell you how to cut down on your coffee intake every day to save $5. Instead, I want you to focus on the big picture and to do a check to see if your foundation for savings is properly in place. It's good to take a high-level approach before going into the details like cutting back on coffee and figuring out what exactly are you spending your money on. If you're like most Canadians, you'll be spending the most on the big 3 expenses, which are housing at 29.2%, transportation at 19.9%, and food, which is 13.4%. Combined, the average Canadian is spending 62.5% of their money on these 3 things combined. Make sure you stick around till after the list is finished and I'll go over more tricks on how to save money. If you get lost or want to learn more, check out the written article about this video on my website, wealthawesome.com. I've included a link in the description. So here we go with section 1, which is housing and shelter. Housing is by far the biggest single expense that Canadians spend on, sitting at 29.2% for the average household in 2017. I've included some convenient ways here for saving on your housing. So if you're a renter, you can get a roommate and share living costs with someone else, whether it's a partner or with a friend, which will dramatically cut your costs by upwards to 50%. Another tip is to live farther from the city core. Downtown rent is usually a lot more, so try to live outside the core. And be mindful that depending on where you work, this might increase transportation costs. Look for a new place in the wintertime. Demand is usually lower because people don't want to move in the winter, so homeowners have more trouble renting out their units. Negotiate when re-signing a lease. If you've been a good tenant, your landlord might not want to lose you. Try to ask for 10% less to start your new contract and see if they would consider negotiating down. It doesn't hurt to try. If you're going to be gone for a while, consider subletting your place so you can save on rent costs. And take your time and shop around. Take a tour of at least 3 or 4 places and scour Kijiji, Craigslist, or your local rental listings for good deals. And watch out for hidden costs. Apartments should usually include all utilities except for electricity in their costs. However, this might not always be the case. Also, be mindful that a lot of apartments have move-in fees to book an elevator, so be clear on that as well. If you're a homeowner, I found that negotiating better mortgage rates is a great way to save. If you're looking for new mortgage rates, look outside of the big banks. Pit multiple mortgage brokers against each other for the best rates. They have access to hundreds of lenders and work on commissions, so they're motivated to get you the best deal. Learn to use Airbnb. Whenever you need to leave the city, you could be using your home as an income generating asset. It's a must if you live in a high tourist area. You could be missing out on a lot of money once travel comes back. The second tip I have for homeowners is to buy below your means. Even though you're approved for a maximum amount of mortgage, it probably doesn't mean that you should take that full amount. By buying lower than the maximum, you leave yourself some wiggle room to spend on other areas of your life. The third tip is to put down 20% to save insurance. CMHC insurance costs are hefty if you don't put down 20% of the housing costs as a down payment. So try your best to save up the 20% down payment. Another big money pit is home renovations, so be very careful with home renovations. They can end up costing way more than budgeted, and they don't usually increase the value of your house by what you paid for it. Now, next up, the section that Canadians spend the second most amount of money on is transportation. Getting from point A to point B is an area that I think many Canadians can cut down their costs drastically, and without too much of a hassle either. To save money in Canada, look no further than these quick transportation wins. The first trick that I found was very useful to me is to know your cost per kilometer of driving your vehicle. Vehicle costs are surprising because it's hard to see all the hidden costs. For example, in BC, if you owned a used SUV, it would cost around 63 cents per kilometer driven. So if you're making a 20-kilometer round trip for a total of 40 kilometers, that trip is actually costing you around $25.20 to make. It's not just the fuel cost, but the cost of depreciation and maintenance on the vehicle and insurance as well. Check your vehicle cost per kilometer using this estimator tool. I've linked to it in the description. The second thing I would recommend is to take your time to buy a vehicle. Don't wait for your current vehicle to die before shopping for a new one, so you're not too desperate, and you can negotiate a lot of different options with either the dealership or used car. Second one is to negotiate insurance. So if you live in a province like Alberta where you can buy car insurance from a private provider, contact multiple brokers and shop around online for the best rates. There's a huge difference in price for the exact same type of coverage. I've cut my insurance costs down by half by just making a quick phone call. Buy used and also look for good deals. I've never bought a used car before. The first few cars that I bought, I owned them for over a year and sold them for at least the same amount that I purchased it for. If you buy new, you'll not even get close to what you paid for, since the first few years of depreciation on your car are the heaviest. Aim for a 3 to 5 year old used vehicle. I figured that's the sweet spot. The average new car loses between 20 to 25% of its value in the first year alone. So by buying a car that's a few years old, you can still not worry too much about maintenance and have a relatively new car at a way lower price. And if you insist on buying new, be wary when you are going to talk to the finance manager after the initial sale. He'll try to sell you on overpriced warranties and things like undercoating and all the little extras that you could get a lot cheaper elsewhere. Another tip for saving on transportation is to buy smaller. Smaller cars usually mean that it will cost less to purchase and consume less gas and overall be less expensive to maintain. Another tip that I found very helpful in Vancouver was I used a lot of car shares. Car shares like Car2Go are available in many cities and it's about half the price of a taxi. So if you're choosing between a taxi and a Car2Go, it's a lot cheaper to go with Car2Go. The last thing I would recommend for transportation is to use human fuel. So if it's not too freezing outside, consider walking, biking, skateboarding, or whatever is your preferred mode of destination of getting around. Not only is it free, but you'll get a great workout as well. The next section where Canadians spend a ton of money is food. One of the very best things about being alive is sitting down together at a meal with loved ones. There's a lot of research that shows that eating food with someone you love is a huge indicator and booster of mental health. Going to restaurants is a very social event, but it can also get pricey to go too often. That's why it's hard for many people to adjust food habits. Another major factor is the convenience of eating out, as fast food is available everywhere and easy to get to. If you can overcome the convenience trap and find other ways to socialize, not only could you save more money, but you could probably eat a lot healthier too. My first tip is similar to the transportation one. Figure out your per meal cost. It'll really open your eyes as to what's the cheapest way and how much money you could be saving. At a restaurant with taxes and tip for lunch or dinner, it's at least $18 to $20 per meal these days. And fast food is around $7 to $12 a meal. Compared to prepping your own meal using ingredients from Costco, that will cost you only about $2 to $4 per meal. That's a huge difference and can lead up to hundreds of dollars a month or more. My second tip for saving on food expenses is to track food expenses. It's so easy to not pay attention to food costs. Figure out where you're spending the most on and target that first. Consider using a mobile app such as Mint that will automatically track your spending using your credit card. The third tip I have is to use Costco or a similar bulk grocery store. Costco is hands down the cheapest way to get ingredients for food. Plus, if you hate cooking, there's many healthy and amazing pre-made meals you could buy at Costco for very cheap. Try to make it a weekly or bi-weekly habit to go shopping. And that brings me to my next tip, which is to meal prep. You could prep meals for a few days at a time to make it super convenient to grab food and go. Not only do you save money by meal prepping, but you'll probably eat way healthier also. And in the end, it could actually save you time from going to fast food or restaurants because you're just prepping everything all at once. Another tip I have, and this is the one I struggled with the most, was how to get the social aspect of eating out together and replacing that in other ways. So I would recommend hosting more meals or barbecues at your own place or at a friend's place instead of going out to eat. You still get to socialize and save a lot of money as well. Another tip I have is to try to have fun cooking. I know a lot of guys don't like to cook, and girls too. You can look up new and easy recipes take a cooking class or try cooking with a friend or your partner. It could be a lot of fun. I just went over the 3 biggest problem areas of spending for Canadians. By being mindful of what you're spending on housing, transportation, and food, you'll be well on your way to being able to save a lot of money. So what area are you guilty of overspending on? For me, it was food and transportation that I was a bad spender on. When I was able to figure out ways to save money on those 2 things without sacrificing my quality of life, I started saving a lot more money. I think most people have at least one problem area of the 3 that I mentioned. So which of the 3 are the ones that you can improve on? So other than these 3 ways that I mentioned, there's other simple ways to save, such as not putting your money into a bank account at a big bank, where you'll probably only get 0.1% interest rate per year. Use an online bank such as EQ Bank, where you'll be getting 1.5% interest per year, and it'll keep you up to pace with inflation. So I highly recommend doing that. It could save you a lot of money in the long run. I put a link in the description if you're interested. Alright, so since you made it this far, like and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to check out the blog wealthawesome.com. I talk about this topic and way more money saving and money making investing tips, and it's one of the fastest growing resources for personal finance in Canada, and I've been super excited to build it. So make sure you check it out, and as always, thanks for listening.